Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good morning. The devotional this morning will be led by the Reverend Matt Miller of the Community Bible Chapel in Brattleboro.
Good morning. This is my first time doing this or anything like this. There's a first time for everything. You know, when you picture something in your head about how it's going to look, and sometimes it ends up looking exactly the way that you thought it was going to look. This is not one of those times. So, thank you. The thing that I prepared to share this morning is actually very personal to me, and I don't know if it's going to resonate with anybody else. I just picked my favorite quote of all time. They gave me 3 minutes, and I said, okay, my favorite quote will do. It's my favorite quote. It's very personal to me. You probably won't get why it's personal to me, but there was a wise man once said, I think his name was John Lennon, but he might not have been the only one, once said that the personal is the same thing as the universal. And so my hope is that in some way what I have to say this morning is not only personal, but also universal and resonates with all of you. And before I get into it, just thank you for being you. Thank you for serving our state in the way that you do. And it's my privilege and my honor to be here this morning. The quote, before I'm going to read, I'm just going to set it up with a context. Set it in context in the scriptures. So in the Gospels, we have the stories of Jesus, and there's two stories that we need to understand in order for this quote that I'm going to read to pop. The first is Jesus at the end of a speech that he gives to the corrupt religious leaders, and he gives this really passionate speech, basically criticizing them. You might even say condemning them for their hypocrisy and their injustice. And at the end of this speech, he looks out onto the city. He's not even talking to the religious leaders anymore. He looks over the city and he says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who stone the prophets and kill those sent to you, how I've longed to gather you together as a hen gathers her chicks." The other story is one you may be more familiar with. It's the story of Jesus coming into the temple and turning out the people who were selling, which was a corruption of the temple, but it was also an exploitation of the poor. In order to participate in the community of Israel in that time, one needed to have a sacrifice. And if one couldn't afford a sacrifice, it was in the law that they should be given one by their neighbors. But in this temple economy, the poor were forced to purchase their sacrifices. They needed to buy their place in their community. And so this is what angers Jesus. And this is why he comes into the temple and he overturns the temple. And he says, "You've turned God's house into a house of prayer." What I'm trying to set up is that this figure, Jesus, is a very passionate and emotional person who has a range of emotions that he shows: deep sadness, deep anger. But the quote that I want to share with you is about joy. And it's from G.K. Chesterton. It ends his work. It's the last paragraph of his work, Orthodoxy. And he says, "The tremendous figure which fills the Gospels towers in this respect, as in every other, above all the thinkers who ever thought themselves tall. His pathos was natural, almost casual. The Stoics, ancient and modern, were proud of concealing their tears. Jesus never concealed his tears. He showed them plainly on his open face at any daily sight, such as the far side of his native city. Yet he concealed something. Solemn supermen and imperial diplomats are proud of restraining their anger. He never restrained his anger. He flung furniture down the front steps of the temple. and asked people how they expected to escape the damnation of hell. Yet he restrained something. I say it with reverence. There was in that shattering personality a thread that must be called shyness. There was something that he hid from all people when he went up a mountain to pray. There was something that he covered constantly by abrupt silence or impetuous isolation. There was some one thing that was too great for God to show us when he walked upon our earth, and I have sometimes fancied that it was his mirth. Thank you.
Members, this morning, we will hold a moment of silence for a former House member that we recently lost. Representative Robert Walker of Brownington was born in 1937 and served in the House from 1995 through 1998 and passed away on January 19th. Will you please rise and join me in a moment of remembrance of Representative Robert Walker of Brownington. Members, it's the day. I'm honored to recognize our first group of legislative pages we've had with us for this session. We came into this year hoping to kick off our session as familiar as previous bienniums, and the energy and dedication you have brought to the State House has been inspiring. Your work as legislative pages serves as a unique and important part of our legislative process, carrying the conversations and documentation that spur the creation of bills that later become law. Your service in the State House is forever sealed in the halls and chambers of this great building, and you are now part of that history as members of the 2023 legislative session. Like the pages that have come before you, you are all now and forever part of this legislative family here. I hope that you were able to learn new things, explore all of the little nooks and crannies of this building, listen in on the legislative process while making long-lasting friendships. I hope you are all able to stay connected and plan a time in the future when you can all reunite and share stories about your time here. The doors to the State House are open for all to come and visit, and that holds especially true for all of you. It has been so wonderful to have you here, and we hope to see you all very soon. I will be calling each page up to receive their pin and take a photo. If you could please hold your applause to the end, it'd be greatly appreciated. First, we have Chase Cassell. William Cunningham of Burlington. Get your pen ready. Okay. Sarah DiGuglielmo of Shelburne. Grace Donahue of Roxbury. Nadia Fraser of Montpelier. Elliot Palm of Essex Junction. and Hannah Young of Tunbridge. Let's give them all a big round of applause for their hard work. Members, we have 9 House bills for introduction this morning. House Bill 222 is an act relating to reducing overdoses, introduced by Representative Whitman of Bennington and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H222, an act relating to reducing overdoses.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Human Services. House Bill 223 is an act to creating a felony penalty for recklessly endangering another person, introduced by Representative Stebbins of Burlington. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H223, an act relating to creating a felony penalty for recklessly endangering another person.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. House Bill 224 is an act relating to child input in child custody cases, introduced by Representative Garofano and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H224, an act relating to child input in child custody cases.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. House Bill 225 is an act relating to eliminating the tipped minimum wage, introduced by Representative Troiano of Standard and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H225, an act relating to eliminating the tipped minimum wage.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on General and Housing. House Bill 226 is an act relating to candidate information to be provided to the Secretary of State, introduced by Representative Bloomley of Burlington. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H226, an act relating to candidate information to be provided to the Secretary of State.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. House Bill 227 is an act relating to the Vermont Uniform Power of Attorney Act, introduced by Representative Lalone of South Burlington and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H227, an act relating to the Vermont Uniform Power of Attorney Act.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. House Bill 228 is an act relating to the financial literacy in Vermont's public schools, introduced by Representative Jerome of Brandon and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H228, an act relating to financial literacy in Vermont's public schools.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Education. House Bill 229 is an act relating to the Petroleum Cleanup Fund, introduced by Representative Marcotte of Coventry and, just of Coventry. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H229, an act relating to the Petroleum Cleanup Fund.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Environment and Energy. Finally, House Bill 230 is an act relating to implementing mechanisms to reduce suicide, introduced by Representative Black of Essex and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H230, an act relating to implementing mechanisms to reduce suicide.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Health Care. Members, we have received a request to read a House concurrent resolution that the House and the Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. HCR 15 is a House concurrent resolution in memory of former Representative and District 4 Act 250 Environmental Commissioner James McNamara of Burlington. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas Jim McNamara was a loving husband, father, and grandfather. a dedicated public servant, and an enthusiastic golfer, skier, and singer of sacred and secular music. And whereas after serving in the U.S. Navy during World War II and graduating from the College of Holy Cross and Cornell Law School, he worked as an assistant Burlington city attorney, as a private practitioner with his father, and then with the firm of McNamara, Fitzpatrick, and McCormick. And whereas for more than 30 years, he served as a Burlington Justice of the Peace, and in advance of the 1994 session, Governor Howard Dean appointed Jim McNamara to a vacant seat in the House of Representatives, where he served honorably until 2000 as a member of the Committee on Transportation. And whereas in the 1970s, Governor Thomas Salmon nominated Jim McNamara to the District 4 Act 250 Environmental Commission. And following Jim's legislative service, Governors Dean, Douglas, Shumlin, and Scott returned Jim McNamara to the commission as an alternate, where his active participation as commissioner reflected his intelligence, reasonableness, and thorough preparation and engaging wit. And whereas Jim McNamara died on November 27, 2022, leaving his children and grandchildren, his wife of 44 years, Ellie, having predeceased him in 2004, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly extends its sincere sympathies to the family of former Representative and District 4 Act 250 Environmental Commissioner James McNamara, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the family of Jim McNamara and to the District 4 Act 250 Environmental Commission.
Are there any announcements? Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just heard a resolution dedicated to a neighbor and friend from the north end of Burlington. Jim McNamara left us on November 27th of 22. If you had never met him after we do this, I think you would wish that you had. He was a Colchester native, but he was a consummate Vermonter. He and Ellie made a lasting impression on the North End community. Coworkers on the Environmental Commission say that he had a song in his heart, a smile on his face, and a twinkle in his eye as he served Vermonters. That service, as you just heard, was encompassed in his service in World War II as a veteran, his 30 years as a Justice of the Peace, a District 4 Environmental Commissioner, and he served in that role even after he moved from his home into a care home. The commission decided they would meet there so that he could continue to participate. He was Assistant Attorney for the City of Burlington. He served on the Trinity College Board of Trustees, and he was a member of this House for 3.5 terms. Like many Vermonters, his dry sense of humor was employed often and enjoyed by all. I personally remember conversations with Jim where I didn't really get the brunt of the joke until probably half an hour later. We are joined by several individuals who enjoyed a long relationship with Jim. It's a large group, and I'm pretty sure I don't have all the names, but Caitlin Hayes, District 4 Coordinator, Aaron Bronke, State Director, Rachel Lamanco, a Business Director and former District Connector, Pete Gill, the Executive Director of the National Resources Board, Pan Laranger, a District 4 Commissioner, as well as Parker Relier and Kate Purcell, and Sabrina Haskell, who is the Chair of the Natural Resources Board. We're also joined by 3 of Jim's children, and a cousin, Polly, his daughter, Maggie, son, Joe, and son, Jeremy. Please welcome them to our house and as a tribute to Jim's service.
Will the guest, the member from Burlington, please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements, member from Milton?
Madam Speaker, this Tuesday, Valentine's Day, February 14th at 8 o'clock, the National Guard Caucus will host its monthly meeting. It will be held in the Pavilion Building in room 267. And at this particular caucus meeting, there will be a Guard one-on-one briefing from yours truly to familiarize any members, whether caucus members or not. There'll be an email coming out from Representative Matt Byrong with a Zoom link in there for anybody that would like to dial in remotely. Thank you.
Member from Newport City.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce my son, Kieran Templeman.
Will the guest member and family member from Newport City please rise and be recognized? Member from Westminster.
Madam Speaker, the member who represents West Brattleboro and myself have a special guest in the chamber today. He is a servant in his community in a whole variety of ways. He is both the pastor of the Community Bible Chapel in Brattleboro. He's also a longstanding foster parent and an advocate for change within our foster care system. And I know him best as a passionate volunteer in restorative justice through the Brattleboro Community Justice Center, where he's been involved for many years with COSA volunteer, as a COSA volunteer, working with individuals recently released from incarceration. So that would be our devotional speaker for today, Matt Miller.
Will the guest member from Westminster please rise and be recognized? Member from Montpelier.
Madam Speaker, these are difficult jobs we have, working long hours in the public eye. And I think at the end of the day, when you're feeling a bit fragile, vulnerable, it's important to have people you can talk to. These heroes take many forms, but for me personally, it's the folks who pour my drinks at my favorite pub in town. I'd like to welcome the best publicans in town, the proprietors of Bare Naked Growler on River Street, where I would encourage any member of the body to go have some mozzarella sticks anytime. They moved up here from Dixon, Tennessee, and their names are Preston Myatt and Bonnie Van Redsburg. I'd like to welcome my guest today.
Will the guest of the member of Montpelier please rise and be recognized? Member from Brandon.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce and welcome two special guests. My daughter, Louisa, who is, and she is visiting from Brooklyn, where she is a bilingual special ed kindergarten teacher. And also our good friend, Shantanu Kashigar, who is visiting us from San Jose and getting a little bit of winter today. So, welcome.
Will the guest of the member from Brandon please rise and be recognized? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the member from Charlotte, I'd like to introduce my Aunt Jane and Uncle Eddie Krasnow and my cousin, Select Board member Matthew Krasnow, residents since 1978. Madam Speaker, in 1978, my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle moved together to the rural town of Charlotte to be neighbors and raise their families together. My Aunt Jane was my mother's stepsister, and my Uncle Eddie was my father's brother. Those of you who have been here a long time may see the resemblance. They were two sisters who married two brothers. Jane was a longtime guidance counselor at South Burlington High School and then at CVU in Heinsberg. Eddie was a teacher for years at Virgins Union High School and ran the incredibly successful Access Education program at CVU. They were my neighbors until I moved to South Burlington, and their kids, my cousins, are my closest friends. For many reasons, I wouldn't be here without them, and I feel very lucky, Madam Speaker, to introduce them to you and to this body.
Will the family of the member from South Burlington please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Colchester.
Yes. Hi, I'd like to recognize Pam Laranger, who is here from the Colchester Select Board. She's chair of the Colchester Select Board, and I believe she has dedicated her life to improving the lives of Vermonters and the citizens of Colchester.
Will the guest of the member from Colchester please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, we have one bill on our action calendar this morning. House Bill 89 is an act relating to civil and criminal procedures concerning legally protected healthcare activity. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H89, an act relating to civil and criminal procedures concerning legally protected healthcare activity.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Member from Northfield.
Madam Speaker, yesterday afternoon, the member from South Burlington expressed disappointment to me that I had failed to interrogate him. So I do have just a few questions of clarification.
The member from South Burlington is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I'm using the calendar of yesterday because the bill is not reprinted in today's calendar. And just on the first page under definition, page 63, I've been looking at the definition for legally protected healthcare activity. And this may just be a confusing issue of grammar, but under section B, sub B, it refers to an act or admission undertaken. And then there's kind of a series of to do this or this or this. And the last one is, or to provide insurance coverage for such services. So that would appear to read that it's an act or an omission taken to provide insurance coverage for services. In other words, including an omission to provide services. Could the member clarify the intent or what exactly this covers or doesn't cover as a protected health activity?
Yes, and I usually don't thank somebody who's interrogating me, but I thank the member from Northfield for fulfilling my wishes of having an interrogation. Yeah, the intent is just to make sure that insurers and payers of insurance are covered for providing insurance to legally protected health care. I do understand your concern there as far as it's saying omission to provide insurance coverage. That's not the intent, to have the omission of insurance coverage. It is to cover insurers or payers who are providing coverage for these healthcare services.
I thank the member. If the member could just clarify, I do understand the intent, and I assumed that, but how does the word omission not sort of defeat that intent?
That's a very good question, and I think that that's something that we will certainly flag as we're continuing consideration of this particular definition, to clarify that grammar, to make sure that the intent is there, to make sure that we're not talking about omission to provide insurance. So this is going over to the other body, and at the same time, these definitions, we're making sure that they are being followed in both the Senate Bill S-37 as well as this bill, and we'll have plenty of time to make sure that that grammar issue is absolutely clear to follow our intent.
I thank the member on that question. The second one relates to the same section of definition, and perhaps the member's answer will be the same. But I'm wondering, in the context and intent, the use of the term encourage and what the intent is versus protection of those who would want to aid or further the exercise and rights of a person in terms of their rights to reproductive health care. Encourage, to me, implies not a neutral action, but perhaps an attempt to sway someone's decision-making. So could the member clarify that?
Well, I believe that encourage does have the definition of yes, encouraging somebody. I don't know how it's a dictionary definition of what encourage would mean. I mean, we wanted to make sure that we were broadly covering any activity that could be associated with assisting or supporting, helping an individual to obtain the legally protected healthcare services.
And so I assume that would not extend or imply kind of any, a little bit of arm twisting activity as encouragement?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I think the idea is if somebody is, I'll give an example that comes to mind. If somebody is suffering from gender dysphoria, having somebody suggest that they go to a mental health counselor, I would consider encouragement, and I think that's the kind of behavior that we are after.
Thank the member on that question. The last question really relates to clarifying some statements that were made on the floor, including one that I didn't fully catch. I'll attribute it again to some of our new audio. But Madam Speaker, when the member was discussing how the bill addresses telehealth, and I thought there was a reference to it being a little different from our current practices or addressing of telehealth. Could the member just clarify that?
Yes. As I said yesterday, this changes the assumption of what law applies in telemedicine for the narrow areas of reproductive health care and gender-affirming health care. Traditionally, it is the location of the patient that the law applies, but we feel so long as a Vermont provider is licensed in Vermont, meaning that they are following nationally accepted standards of care for the services they provide, we feel in this instance that the choice of law should be that it's Vermont's law that applies in those situations where the provider is providing telehealth or telemedicine and is licensed in Vermont.
So, Madam Speaker, the member used the term traditionally in terms of the way those jurisdictions are covered currently. And I know that last year this body placed into statute the coverages and definition of telehealth. And I'm wondering if the committee took any testimony or reviewed that statutory, those statutory definitions, or took testimony on what the meaning was or the decision-making in that statute in terms of protection of patients.
I don't recall if we specifically discussed that statute, and it may have come up in the course of testimony because we did have pretty significant testimony about what we were doing with respect to telehealth, and wanted to be very clear that this is different than elsewhere. And perhaps maybe traditionally is not the best word, because telehealth and telemedicine is actually really still a developing field. And really during the COVID crisis, I think it really has expanded. And I think there's still some things to be settled as far as telehealth, despite the fact that we have been working on it, including this past biennium.
Thank you, member. I think I would go a little farther in the description of in development, in the sense that our voting on statutory provisions last biennium, at least at this point in time, are the current law of the state designed to protect patients. And so the description under this bill suggests that it does overturn those thought out statutes of the state. And so I'm wondering if there was any flyby with the healthcare committee that took all the testimony and made those statutory recommendations last year?
There was they like to call it a drive-through instead of a drive-by, and there was a drive-through the healthcare committee of the bill.
That's helpful to know, and thank you, member. One other thing in the same realm in terms of current practices and standards. My understanding yesterday is that you made clear, you went through a list of things that this bill does not do. And just to clarify for the body, my understanding is that it does not change any current law, for instance, on informed consent or treatment of minors, or regarding other medical practice standards. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I thank the member for those clarifications. Madam Speaker, as a whole, I do support the concept behind this bill. I will continue to oppose it because of its lack of parity for protections of those with conscience objections. And that is something that this body has consistently refused to address. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? Member from Winooski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Due to the significance of this legislation for Vermonters and especially our providers across the state, I ask that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll.
The member from Winooski requests that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll. Is the member sustained? The member is sustained. When the vote is taken, it will be taken by roll. The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, will the clerk please commence to call the roll?
Andrews of Westford.
2 minutes. Will the House please come to order? I would like to remind members that we are in the middle of a roll call vote. Members and guests are prohibited from using computers, phones, or any type of electronic device. Please refrain from the passing of notes and conversation during a roll call. When the clerk calls your name, please answer in a loud and clear voice so the clerk can accurately record your vote. The question is, shall the bill pass? Will the clerk please continue to call the roll?
Andriano of Orwell. Yes. Anthony of Berry City. Yes. Arison of Weathersfield. Yes. Arsenault of Williston. Yes. Austin of Colchester. Yes. Bartholomew of Heartland. Yes. Bartley of Fairfax. Yes. Beck of St. Johnsbury. Yes. Berbecco of Winooski. Yes. Byrong of Regents. Yes. Black of Essex. Yes. Bloomley of Burlington. Yes. Bongarts of Manchester. Yes. Boslin of Westminster. Yes. Boyden of Cambridge. Yes. Brady of Williston. Yes. Brannigan of Georgia. No. Brennan of Colchester. Yes. Brown of Richmond. Yes. Brownell of Pownell. Yes. Brumstead of Shelburne. Yes. Burdett of West Rutland. Yes. Burke of Brattleboro. Yes. Burrows of West Windsor. Yes. Buss of Woodstock. Yes. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Yes. Canfield of Fairhaven. Yes. Carroll of Bennington. Yes. Casey of Montpelier. Yes. Chapin of East Montpelier. Chase of Chester. Chase of Colchester. Yes. Chestnut Tangerman of Middletown Springs. Yes. Christie of Hartford. Yes. Chena of Burlington. Yes. Clifford of Rutland City. Yes. Coffey of Guilford. Yes. Cole of Hartford. Yes. Conlin of Cornwall. Yes. Corcoran of Bennington. Yes. Cordis of Lincoln. Yes. DeMar of Enosburg. Yes. Demrow of Corinth. Yes. Dickinson of St. Albans Town. No. Dodge of Essex. Yes. Dolan of Essex Junction. Yes. Dolan of Waitsfield. Yes. Donahue of Northfield. No, I'd like to explain my vote. Durfee of Shaftesbury. Yes. Elder of Starksboro.
Yes.
Emmons of Springfield.
Yes.
Farley's Rubio of Barnet.
Yes.
Galfetti of Barrytown.
Yes.
Garifano of Essex.
Yes.
Goldman of Rockingham.
Yes.
Ghostland of Northfield.
Yes.
Graham of Williamstown.
No.
Gregoire of Fairfield. Hango of Berkshire. Harrison of Chittenden.
Yes.
Hedrick of Burlington.
Yes.
Higley of Lowell.
No.
Holcomb of Norwich.
Yes.
Hooper of Randolph.
Yes.
Hooper of Burlington.
Yes.
Houghton of Essex Junction.
Yes.
Howard of Rutland City.
Yes.
Hyman of South Burlington. James of Manchester.
Yes.
Jerome of Brandon.
Yes.
Kornheiser of Brattleboro.
Yes.
Krasnow of South Burlington.
Yes.
Labor of Morgan.
No.
LaBounty of Linden.
No.
Lally of Shelburne.
Yes.
Lalonde of South Burlington.
Yes.
Lamont of Morristown.
Yes.
Lanford of Regents.
Yes.
LaRush of Franklin.
Yes.
Levitt of Grand Isle.
Yes.
Lipsky of Stowe.
Yes.
Logan of Burlington.
Yes.
Long of Newfane.
Yes.
McGuire of Rutland City.
Yes.
Marcotte of Coventry.
Yes.
Maslin of Thetford.
Yes.
Matos of Milton. McCann of Montpelier. McCarthy of St. Albans City. McCoy of Poultney. McFawn of Barrytown. McGill of Bridport. Mahaly of Calais. Minier of South Burlington. Morgan of Milton. Morris of Springfield. Morrissey of Bennington. Rowicki of Putney. Mulvaney Stanek of Burlington. Nicole of Ludlow. Knott of Rutland City. Noyes of Wolcott. Nugent of South Burlington. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Odie of Burlington. Oliver of Sheldon. Page of Newport City. Payala of Londonderry. Parsons of Newberry. Pat of Worcester. Pearl of Danville. Peterson of Clarendon. Pouch of Heinsberg. Priestley of Bradford. Rachelson of Burlington. Rice of Dorset. Roberts of Halifax. Samus of Castleton. Sackowitz of Randolph. Shy of Middlebury. Shaw of Pittsford. Sheldon of Middlebury. Sibelia of Dover. Sims of Craftsbury. Small of Winooski. Smith of Derby. Squirrel of Underhill. Stebbins of Burlington. Stevens of Waterbury. Stone of Burlington. Supernaut of Barnard. Taylor of Milton. Taylor of Colchester. Templeman of Brownington. Tolino of Brattleboro. Toof of St. Albans Town. Torrey of Moortown. Troiano of Stannard. Walker of Swanton. Waters Evans of Charlotte. White of Bethel. Whitman of Bennington. Williams of Berry City. Williams of Granby. Wilson of Linden. Wood of Waterbury. Chase of Chester. Gregoire of Fairfield. Hyman of South Burlington. Nugent of South Burlington. And Wilson of Linden.
For purpose of explanation, member from Northfield. I've recognized the member from Northfield. I will come to you.
Provide services for reasons of conscience. This bill makes some sense to protect providers against any chill effect across other states that are contrary to our laws and policy. And I do not disagree with that concept. However, it lacks balance when it fails to protect providers against the chilling effect of the lack of legal protection in our state for their decisions to not participate in some services for ethical reasons. So I vote no.
Member from Jericho.
I apologize. Representative Granning of Jericho. Thank you.
For further purposes, for purpose of explanation, we'll now go to the member from Berkshire.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My vote reflects my objection to this bill that provides protections to Vermont practitioners who perform legal procedures, but omits providing any protections for those practitioners who conscientiously decline to take part in those procedures. Thank you.
Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am proud to vote yes to protect the legal rights to affirming and life-saving healthcare, specifically reproductive services, abortion, and gender-affirming care. This is an important day, and this is an important day and bill for the people of Vermont and the Vermont healthcare providers.
Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 130. Those voting no, 13. The ayes have it, and you have passed the bill. Member, that completes the orders of the day. The chair has one announcement. Will the House please come to order? After we adjourn, the House Discrimination Prevention Panel will hold its training for all House members as required by House Rule 9. It will take several minutes to get set up. So please remain in the chamber to attend this training. We will also provide a link to the training after today as well. So we'll have that in your email. Are there any announcements? Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your House General and Housing Committee will meet 10 minutes after this, the discrimination panel and a hearing or training.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none. Member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Tuesday, February 14th at 10 a.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m.
You have heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and this body stands in adjournment until next Tuesday at 10 a.m.